union man, amazed at what I am. I say what I think, that the company stinks. Yes, I'm a union man. When we meet in the local hall, I'll be voting with them all. With a hell of a shout, it's out, brothers, out, and the rise of the company's fall. Oh, you don't get me, I'm part of the union. You don't get me, I'm part of the union. You don't get me, I'm part of the union. Till the day I die. Till the day I die. As a union man, I'm wise to the lies of the company spies, and I don't get fooled by the company rules, 'cause I always read between the lines, and I always get my way if I strike for higher pay. And I show my card to the Scotland Yard, and this is what I'll say. Oh, you don't get me, I'm part of the union. You don't get me, I'm part of the union. You don't get me, I'm part of the union. Till the day I die. Till the day I die.
Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP from Melbourne, Australia. That's right, other side of the world. And today I got Daniel Coston, rock photographer and journalist. But today, more importantly, we've got a very special guest, John Ford from the Strawbs. How are you today, John?
Pretty psyched to be speaking to Australia. Are you on the west or the east coast?
Oh, Melbourne. You've heard of Melbourne, haven't you?
Melbourne is on the west coast, right?
Down the bottom. It's like near Tasmania.
Oh, Tasmania, right.
We're above Tasmania, but there's water in between. I got to say, you look $1 million, John.
Thank you very much. It's getting dark here, actually, so I hope the lighting is okay. I'm sitting in my studio here.
Oh, that's even great. Now, listen, the Strawbs have got a fantastic new album coming out Friday, right? The magic of it all. Can you tell everyone about the magic all over the world?
Well, the magic of it all, actually, Dave Cousins and Blue Weaver travelled to Cape Town and recorded with a trio of South African musicians. And that's how the backing tracks were mainly recorded. I was supposed to go over, but it was a bit short notice for me traveling from New York. So I never really, but I added all my stuff, via computer when all the mixing was done.
Obviously, you were a key part of the Strawbs in the 70s, continued on with Hudson Ford and other things. What is it like being involved in this new album and kind of involved with this band again after all these years?
Well, actually, it goes back to the previous album, which was Settlement, which was done in the middle of the pandemic in like 2020. And Dave wrote to me and he said, "I got some lyrics. Would you fancy putting some tunes on that?" So that album came out. It actually got in the charts, first chart entry for about 40 years, I think. See, the whole thing of this is that Dave Cousins lives in England. I live in New York on Long Island. Blue Weaver, who was our keyboard player, lives in Germany. So he produced the whole thing, collected everybody's bits and pieces, acoustic guitars, vocals, all that stuff, and put it all together. And so bringing back to the new album, Dave and Blue traveled to Cape Town last year and recorded all the backing tracks with the three musicians who I will give you their names later on. And that's how this, and Dave again, he wrote to me, he said, "I got this idea for like a Christmas tune." And so he said, have you got a tune for it? So I gave him I threw a tune down, sent it across via computer. And so I'm actually involved. As far as being involved, I'm doing a lot of vocals on there. I'm singing one lead vocal and co-writing 2 songs with Dave Cousins, which in itself, as we did on this album and with the Settlement album, me and Dave have never really written before. And we've had sort of things we've worked on together within the album, but mainly I wrote with Richard Hudson. Dave wrote with mainly himself. And so that's the thing in itself, that me and Dave Cousins have written actually 4 songs spread over these 2 albums.
Do you have any hope of going over for the Strawbs show at the Crop Ready Festival in August?
Well, we're doing extensive rehearsals. I fly over on the 30th of this month, and straight away, complete with jet lag, I will be going straight into rehearsals, and so we got a lot to do. But basically, we know what the sets are, and we know all the stuff. I mean, it's just a matter. So the lineup basically will be Dave Cousins, Blue Weaver on keyboards, myself on acoustic guitar and singing. We got Brian Willoughby, who's also was one of the lead guitarists of the Strawbs. His wife Catherine Craig, and we had the three musicians from Cape Town: Kevin Gibson on drums, Shork Schubert on bass, and Moritz Lotz on the guitar. So it's a 7-piece band, actually.
Very
It's
cool.
amazing. Can I ask John how many times you've come to Australia?
Never.
Okay, you got to come to Australia. You want to come?
I'm a great fan. I'm a great fan of Crocodile Dundee. I love the comedian who just died recently.
Yeah,
Australian guy who played the
Barry Humphries.
Barry Humphries. Oh, I loved him. Loved that guy. In fact, I went to see him actually in the 80s in London. He had a one-man show as the where he played the political guy with all the drinks down it.
Yeah, Patterson.
Ah, that was absolutely I love that.
Now listen, being in the Strawbs, how great was it in the 70s? And I mean, you wrote one of their biggest hits too.
Yeah, Part of the Union. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's
was,
it. What a great song.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been the slogan of all the unions still after 40 years. But the 70s was great. I mean, I joined the Strawbs in 1970, and 6 weeks later, because Rick Wakeman was already in the band, keyboard player. 6 weeks later, we were at the Queen Elizabeth Hall recording our first album, Antiques and Curios, after only, being, a few weeks together. And then it went on from there. We had From the Witchwood, Grave New World. Rick left to join Yes. We rode in Blue Weaver from the Amen Corner and recorded Grave New World. That was pretty massive. And then our biggest album of that time was Bursting at the Seams. And as you say, it was pretty wild. Pretty wild.
What's it like living in America?
Well, I moved here a while ago, actually. I've been here about 25 years. Not for it wasn't a musical career. It was for a woman, actually. You've heard that story a lot of times. So I immediately came here. I was, of course, the bassist in the Strawbs, and Rick Wakeman was on tour here. And the agent called me and said, "Can you open for Rick Wakeman?" I said, "Well, I'm a bass player, and so I haven't really got any songs." So he said, "I'm sure you'll throw something together." Anyway, I did, and I went out there before Rick set. Strummed the guitar, played, I don't know what I played. I must have played Part of the Union. And I thought, you know what? I sort of like this sort of solo bit. And I've been solo now for the last, all this time. And I think I'm in about 10 solo albums that have been out over here. And I have a band. My son plays in my band as well. I have a 4-piece band. And then it was, as you say, it was really good to be, reconnected with Dave again, Dave Cousins, and doing digging out all these old Strawbs tracks.
What are the biggest influences from the bands of the 60s? I mean, we know the Beatles, but I mean, there's other bands too, especially the American sound. Who really influenced you?
From America?
Yeah, from America.
Much like I come from the progressive sort of ilk. I like all the poppy stuff. I love Creedence Clearwater Revival. Going back there, Elvis, I got to mention Elvis. I was a great fan of Elvis, and the American bands. I'm trying to. It's hard for me to think what influence. I don't know whether they influenced me, but I just liked all that stuff.
I got to ask you: did you like the Monkees? Did you like the Beach Boys?
Oh yeah, of course, the Beach Boys. Yeah. God Only Knows, one of the greatest pieces of 45 vinyl to be ever made. Of course, the Beach Boys. And the Monkees, they made a few good pop singles. I mean, Mickey Dolenz had a great voice. In fact, today, driving home here, I was listening to that Carole King song they recorded.
Well, Pleasant Valley Sunday.
Pleasant
Yeah.
Valley Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, he did a great job on those vocals. And I actually, believe it or not, I actually played with Peter Tork about 10 years ago. It was some sort of festival thing. And I got up with him. I don't know, I forget what we did, but we did like this 12, I think. He's a very pleasant sort of person. Yeah.
Well, since we were discussing the 60s, I want to ask what comes to mind when you think about your time in Elmer Gantry's Velvet Opera. You guys were together a few years. You toured with Pink Floyd, obviously right in the middle of the British scene in the 60s. What do you think of when you think back on that time of your life?
It was that was wilder actually than the Strawbs. We had a semi sort of hit with a song called Flames, which appeared on the Rock Machine Turned You On, and it was full of American bands, and they thought we were American, Taj Mahal and people like that. And but we had management problems, and we had, believe it or not, we used to do this residency down a club called the Speakeasy, which was a very in club in the 60s. And lo and behold, we were there playing our sort of all-night set, and Jimi Hendrix walks up and says, "Hey guys," he had a hit with Hey Joe at the time. And he said, "Hey guys, do you mind if I come up and jam?" So for a moment there, because our singer got down and our lead guitarist got down, for a moment there, it was Hudson, Ford and Hendrix, myself on the bass, Richard Hudson on the drums, and Jimmy on the guitar. Of course, he got our lead guitarist, Stratocaster, turned it upside down. How he played it upside down, I do not know. Turned his amp way up, and there it was. It was the Jimi Hendrix band. And then after that, I stepped down, and our singer got up, and it was a whole big thing. But yeah, we actually, if only we had cell phones then, because there was nobody was taking any pictures of that at the time.
I actually want to jump ahead a bit. So later in the 70s, you did, of course, 3 great albums with Hudson and Ford. And then you got involved with a project called The Monks, which not only brought you back to Top of the Pops in England, but became a huge band in Canada. The success you all have had in Canada is astounding. Talk a little bit about how did the Monks come together, and talk about finding a fan base like that in Canada.
Well, it was sheer fluke, because we had like 3 hit singles with Hudson. Hudson was like winding down, and we were trying to handle a few different areas, and we wrote in this singer called Terry Cassidy, who was, Hudson and I have our moments vocally, and but Terry was a really good singer. And just by sheer chance, my ex-wife used to have this saying, "Nice legs, shame about the face," through whatever reason. And so I thought, that's a good title for a song. So I wrote the song around that. Hudson chipped in as well. And we were sending away a few songs as demos to the some publishing thing in France. I forget what it's called. And a publisher. So we went down in the basement of our manager's office, tapped out this song, Nice Legs. Richard Hudson on a flight case. I was on electric guitar. I think we maybe overdubbed a bass. That's how we sent it. It was like a demo, Nice Legs, show about the bass. And so a label came back and said, "We want to release this." And so we said, great, I mean, wonderful. When can we go in and record it properly? They said, "No, we like it. It sounds like the punk stuff." And so we really, just by sheer fluke, jumped on this punk band. We weren't. I love that punk scene, in all honesty, because it was what I started out doing, thrashing around on the guitar, and just singing, which was far more, instead of all the progressive stuff where it was so, everybody was so introverted in their music and all this sort of stuff. It was a fresh scene. I loved, the Ramones, and so I thought they were great, when they came in, even though I wasn't part of that scene. So it sort of got mixed up with that punk scene right in 1979, and it became a hit, and we went on Top of the Pops with it, and suddenly we were, the Monks. In fact, the label gave us that name because they gave us the mugs, like in Mugshot. It was the mugs, and then somebody down the line on the album sleeve or whatever got it mixed up, and we became the Monks.
Met her on a blind date, and we about a face. I had to take her dancing, I couldn't let her down. Thought we got a bus to the other side of town. Out upon the dance floor, I wasn't getting far, so I had a drink with my friends up at the bar. I asked them what they thought of her, they felt about the place, and they said, nice legs, shame about a face. She said, "Can we go bowling?" I said, "That would be fine." But when I brought the tickets, she'd already changed her mind. She was turning out to be a real hard case. Nice legs, shame about the boat race. Down to gin and soda, tucked me on the shoulder, whispered in my ear, it's getting kinda late. When I took her home, we hardly said a thing. I walked her to the door, expected to go in. She looked me up and down and really put me in my place. She said, nice legs, shame about your face. Nice legs, shame about your face.
That was a hit. We couldn't get any more hit singles. As soon as they found out we were Hudson Ford, that was the end of that. We made an album, Bad Habits, which actually has become a cult album since then. But as soon as they knew it was Hudson Ford, nobody was interested in it. So we got onto another project after that. Then suddenly we heard from Canada, this album was selling. And not only the album, but another track from the album called Drugs in My Pocket. See, none of these songs we could write today. And half the stuff on the Monks album, we couldn't even write to them. So that's how that happened. When we went over there on a tour, it was like the Beatles. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, actually, you guys played stadiums in Canada. That is amazing.
Yeah, we were doing like hockey stadiums, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it was wild. And then about 2009 or 2010, there was a Canadian band called Small Sins, their whole thing was based on Bad Habits as an album. And they were playing at the I forget what the club is called, in Toronto. They did the whole album in its entirety with all different singers, all these young kids, and they were great. And I went over, they invited me over to do a guest spot. And I think I sang Nice Legs and I Ain't Getting Any, I think, one of those songs. And it was a great evening. And the surprise was I got in the hotel, opened up a couple of Toronto papers, and the Monks were all over the front. Like we never even went away. It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was pretty. Unfortunately, we never got a release in America through whatever reason. It was like managerial things and stuff. And so we never, we would have been as big as Flock of Seagulls, I think, if we'd have come over to America. And so that was a pretty wild story. As with most of music, in pop music, it's a 75% luck, 25% talent.
The thing I liked about the song "Nice Legs" is that when you listen to it, it's it definitely has that punk edge, but it's also a rockabilly song. So much of the early punk and what came after punk broke was like I just want to go back and play rock and roll really loud, and that's one of the things I think that makes that song so catchy. Much also like Part of the Union, it has a very catchy and a chorus that you remember.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of good at that. I mean, I'm good with the old catchy tune. but yeah, I mean, Part of the Union was I was influenced by an earlier guy when I was a kid in London, in England, who was as big as Elvis at the time, called Lonnie Donegan.
Yeah.
And when I was writing the "I'm Getting Me," I envisaged Lonnie singing that, and that's how that came out. And also at the time the straw we're talking about was 72, 73. That the unions everyone had blackouts in England. We were in the middle of a tour, and a lot of the places we played. In fact, the two Daves, Dave Cousins and Dave Lambert, I remember a couple of times playing outside for the crowd because the theatre was blacked out. And so that was lyrically, that was the influence for that sort of song, they were getting too much power, the unions. But I love the unions because I'm in the musicians union. So.
I got to say, with the Beatles, right? Who really influenced you?
I got to say, my all-time favourite singers are Paul McCartney and John Lennon, with George Harrison a bit in behind, although he's great as well. When as a child, I was very aware of music. Like when I was about 10 years old, it was right in that doo-wop era where every song was C A minor, F and G, and I got really bored with that as a kid. Okay? When the Beatles came along with all these amazing chords, you listen to She Loves You with all these. I thought, this is amazing. But they were a big influence on me, on all that stuff. And before that was another band, a British band, which isn't so well known over here, called The Shadows. Before the Beatles was Cliff Richard and The Shadows.
Yeah, that's
The
right.
Shadows, again, when I first heard their, people don't really hear of them in America. They put them in with surf music, which is not really what The Shadows are. When I first heard Apache with those A minor chords, I thought, this is amazing, and that was two major big sort of areas for me the formation of my whatever I've got.
And as I said, now as we're going into 2023, all this new music now is inventing itself, and I just want to ask you if there's any project, anything you're working on, or where they can hear your music. Please tell everybody.
Well, I had a new album out last year called Life in a Foreign Town, which is a loose sort of thing on, me in America sort of stuff. And that was out. That's done pretty well over the internet. And I'm halfway working through another one, which is untitled, which I shall resume when I've done with the Strawbs, because I can only think of one project at a time. So I'm working on that at the moment. And I'm always working on something. I just can't help. Right. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and there's a song in my head, and I sing it into the phone, and invariably in the morning it doesn't really sound that good. But I'm always writing something. I've got loads of stuff that I just go to and think, was this any good? Maybe not.
Well, we were discussing the Beatles, and I have to ask, did you ever get the chance to see the Beatles?
No, but I have met Ringo. One of the Hudson Ford albums was recorded, what was it called? Worlds Collide, our third album. The video Imagine, where he's playing the piano, Yoko's closing the windows. That was his house called Tittenhurst Park, just outside of London. And he sold that to Ringo, who used to hire out the studio where I think John Lennon recorded the backing tracks to the Imagine album, and then he went to New York, I think, to finish it. And so we made our third album in that studio, and one day Ringo used to come in to check everything. How guys, how's it going? Oh, okay, Ringo, thank you very much. Trying to look cool, under Ringo. And that room where the piano was and Yoko was opening, the piano was gone, but we used to sit in there every Thursday to watch the British program Top of the Pops, which we regarded as the trade show. You got to watch trade show, Top of the Pops. And we had the run of the house. It was great. I think Ringo sold it now. Unfortunately, he sold it to some Arabs, and they totally changed it. That could have been a museum, that place. They could have charged a fortune. People would have gone there to check out, where Ringo and John Lennon lived. It was a great place. I think it was about 80 acres or something. We had a lake in the middle. Yeah, it was great. So we spent a month there recording that.
With the 70s, right? I'm just saying in general, when glam rock came in, what did you think of glam rock?
If you look back at a lot of the Strawbs photographs around the time of Bursting to Sing, you will see Dave Cousins actually wearing some eyeliner. And we all, I had this black sort of sequin. Well, we got into that a bit. I mean, we weren't we weren't like David Bowie or anything, not the Hoople, but we sort of got into that a bit. And the funny part about it was, Rick Wakeman used to have this cable show called Gas Tank, where he had like various guests on. And during that, I think it was about 84 or something like that, before I came over there. we went on as the Strawbs, as we were when we recorded The Hangman and the Papists. Some of you heard of that song before. So there's Rick on the keyboards, Dave Cousins, Tony Hooper, and Hudson and I had just come back from Canada with the Monks, and there's me standing there without glasses, with eyeliner and a bright red jacket, and Hudson had, and then Dave and Tony looking like the Little River Boys. But we did a Dave sang, I think, his best ever vocal version, if you want to check that out, of The Hangman and the Papists on that show. It was a great bit of video there.
Now, when we look into music, and as I said, you've obviously going to do some fantastic future projects. I'm just saying, because when you're in music, you can't help it. You're just reinventing yourself and doing what you're doing. And I'm just saying, with your career at the moment, the great thing is you're doing a few things and you've got your fingers in all pies, which is really great. You know, you go Strawbs or you go your band. I mean, isn't that just fantastic now at this point?
At this point in my life, yes. It's pretty good. I must admit, I didn't think, because I was with the Strawbs through 4 albums, okay, and there's been a lot of incarnation since then. I was with Antiques and Curios, From the Witchwood, Bursting at the Seams, and Grave New World. And I actually left in 1973. So we went on to do Hudson Ford. They've, had new lineups, which they made some great albums after we left. And so to be doing this now, after all these years, it's great. I mean, because I always had a soft spot for all that stuff. And looking back, who knows what would have happened if we hadn't have broken up. I mean, we broke up through whatever reasons. And so it's really good to be going over there and, having a drink with all the guys again,
Well, I just want to say, John, we thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, I appreciate it for having me on. I mean, it's one day I will definitely get to Australia.